Welcome to Business as Unusual. This is the live stream where we delve into the pressing issues and emerging trends shaping the business landscape. We're going to get started in just a few minutes, so if you have questions, please feel free to add them to the chat, and we're going to try and get to all of them during today's session. I'm Steele, and I'm the CEO of Red Caffeine. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with Red Caffeine, we are a growth consultancy, and we build and execute go-to-market plans for ambitious mid-market companies. Our service offering includes a fractional team, which we're going to be talking about a lot today. And that team is really led by a senior level marketing leader to enable a business to scale rapidly without hiring a wide range of full-time staff members. As I mentioned, today we're going to be talking a lot about how you might enhance your business with fractional employees or an actual team. So as Mary Lynn and I were starting to think about some of the content for this calendar year. This topic was really sparked by a conversation that I was starting to have with prospects and with customers who have said they hadn't actually heard about this type of staffing option. And so, as I mentioned, our guest, Mary Lynn Fayoumi, who's the president and CEO of HR Source, I think she would agree with me that the traditional full-time hiring and employment is no longer the only choice in our employment options. So while fractional service providers have really existed for a long time, I think I hired my first fractional CFO probably 15 years ago to help me with, think about some ideas around compensation, variable compensation, because I've never done that before. And we actually had built a C-suite interim CFO platform, like an Upwork for the C-suite, almost 20 years ago. So it's been in the space for a long time, but I think the last few years have truly accelerated the change in how we think about our workforce now. So just to kind of set the table, if this term is new for some of you, a fractional service provider does sometimes get referred to as a managed service provider, and it usually refers to a professional or a team who offer their services on a part-time basis to multiple clients. So the arrangement allows a business to tap into this specialized expertise with really not having to have a full-time commitment or even the budget to hiring somebody full-time. So some of the most common roles we see, they are in the C-suite: a CFO, a CMO, a CIO, a COO, and sometimes even CEOs. As I mentioned, a lot of times interim CEOs are brought in when a business is going through a major transition. But in terms of fractional teams, those are types of organizations that usually focus on a core function of the business, like finance and accounting, sales, marketing, HR, and IT. So hiring a fractional resource can fill a specific need, like if you're looking to prep your business for sale, you may want to bring in a CFO that specializes in something like that. Or if you're looking to have a team relationship, that might look like more of a multi-year where the provider becomes more integrated into your business operations. So before we jump in, we are so thrilled to have Mary Lynn back today. And Mary Lynn, tell us a little bit about what's going on in your world these days before we jump into the topic of today.
Well, great to be here, Kathy. I always enjoy working with and partnering with Red Caffeine, and with you particularly. We always have such engaging and interesting, thought-provoking conversations about what's happening in the workplace and the business world. So this is a topic that really has meant a lot to HR Source over the years. We are always looking to find ways to help employers improve their performance, and certainly providing a variety of solutions in different ways is part of our evolution and has been part of our ongoing both challenge and opportunity. And, when you were talking about 20 years, 15 years, I think somewhere between 20 and 25 years ago, we started having our first requests for, hey, don't you have someone on your team that could come out here and help us with this project, or to figure out whether or not we really need an HR department, or how we might fill in for a leave of absence. Our HR
Right.
director is having maternity leave. So when you asked about what's going on, what's always going on at HR Source is trying to figure out ways to help our members. And so, right now, a lot of them are trying to figure out what's happening with AI,
Right.
how to, keep their baby boomers a few more years to pass on all that intellectual capital to the next generation, how to get people to return to the office if that's something they're still challenged with, how to comply with all of the new labor laws, how to gear up for the pay transparency legislation. There's just a lot happening for employers, Paid Leave for All Workers Act. So there's so many things to keep me up at night, as well as other employers, but it's an exciting time with a lot happening and a lot of interesting opportunities for employers.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because we do share some clients, and I just was checking in with a client that had leveraged your fractional resources, and they've made a full-time hire. So I want to, we're always just looking to try and, either augment what we're doing for a client or be really good, referral partners when there's a need and a gap in their business. So let's think about that as we kind of step into what are some of the advantages of fractional service options, especially, I guess, I think we both focus in that mid-market space. So what are some of the things that you're seeing?
Well, it allows you as an organization to probably get access to someone at a higher level, someone with more experience, maybe particularly industry experience, and not have to pay a full-time salary and benefits. So you can tap your toe in the water a little bit. You can have someone either for a period of time, you could have someone full-time for a period of time, or you could have someone part-time or a day or two a week. Or, for example, I know both of our organizations benefit from partnerships where different professionals on an outsourced provider team work with our organization depending upon current priorities, current
Right.
hot issues, and current budgetary constraints. And so there's just so many advantages if you're in a growth period, a startup period, a transition period, to access really seasoned, experienced, specifically skilled professionals in a way you might not ever be able to
Yeah.
have, in a traditional hire.
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, what we see a lot is that our clients, if somebody's looking at Red Caffeine for this type of relationship, that they just don't have that experience or expertise on their leadership or management team. And the ability to build it and scale it quickly is just not, it's just way too much of an investment. So those are the types of things that are some of the key indicators that businesses are coming to us. And I agree with you. Like, those are the ways I think about hiring when I've got a specific need, or if I'm trying to fill a gap in our organization and I really can't justify a full-time hire, or a full-time hire is just not really going to meet my entire needs. So are there other indicators that businesses are kind of like the trigger points that you guys are seeing in terms of that type of, that gap or need?
Definitely. So one is bandwidth. So, I'll use HR because HR professionals and fractional HR is near and dear to my heart. But in many organizations that are small and growing, HR responsibilities are handled by an executive director, a president, an owner, often a COO. And they have other priorities and other challenges that they could be better spending their time on. So the burden of these HR projects, HR compliance issues, day-to-day employee relations, recruitment start to be a burden and require them to be working a lot of extra hours, feel like they're spinning their wheels, feel like they're making some poor decisions because they don't have the experience or the resources to really do the job right. And so that's often that pain point where we get a call saying, we've had a job posting up for 6 months. We're not getting any decent applicant flow. We keep interviewing candidates. We need help. Or HR responsibilities are just taking up too much of our key executives' time. It's becoming a burden, and we're not working or attending to more strategic matters in our organization. And so we could really use some help.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that even just in both HR and marketing per se, and I would assume that we'd hear that in accounting and other fractional, types of experiences, that the roles have just become so complex. I mean, the need for a marketer, like as you said at the top of the conversation, to understand how to leverage AI and some of these emerging technologies, the need for an HR team. I mean, I've known huge organizations to have like a 4 or 5 person HR team that are handling compensation and hiring and recruiting. And like, it's like that growth and need to really think about your talent strategy as a strategic part of your business has evolved, to think about your talent strategy in terms of a marketing and communication objective has really evolved. So it is, I think, the complexity of running a business today, and then don't even get me started on some of the legal and taxation and all those things that we're sort of faced with. So the even for us, like we might have had one person in a specific role handling multiple clients. For our clients, like I think about SEO, like we used to have like one person. Now we need a team of people because the complexity of that need has just so evolved. So it is a really interesting dynamic.
And it's
So,
hard for it. Sorry,
yeah,
it's hard for someone inside an organization who has inherited other duties as assigned, whether they're in marketing or accounting
right.
or HR, to stay up to speed with everything that's happening. And so to have someone in a professional capacity who make it their job and it's their, professional expertise and obligation to stay up to speed on everything that's new and different in the marketplace to be most effective. Once you're spread incredibly thin, the ability to do that effectively over, various parts of your business becomes increasingly difficult as businesses grow, become more sophisticated, or have a variety of, business initiatives, priorities, and goals that require really dedicated expertise and attention to excel in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're saying that there really aren't unicorns, that those types of people, although we look for them, we're constantly trying to make people become unicorns. It's really just not that realistic. Maybe a very short time frame you can wear these multiple hats, but it's just not a long-term sustainable way to run your organization. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the efficiency gains that could be had without compromising on the quality of the service level that you're getting. What are some of the things that you're seeing?
Well, first of all, if you hire a professional, experienced, high quality, fractional person, they are going to hit the ground running in a way that's different than onboarding a full-time team member. They're going to have the ability to focus in quickly and effectively and succinctly on, dealing with the priorities and the objectives at hand. They're going to bring to the table experiences, processes, known success strategies that
Right.
they've used in other organizations. they're going to quickly acclimate themselves and speak the language of the business in order to make sure, because they're going to be measured in much more quicker and much more specific ways than a full-time employee would be. So I think one of the challenges employers have when they're making this decision to hire fractional is to make darn sure that they have really been specific about how the project and how the engagement is scoped, and also what the metrics are to determine whether or not this is a good fit for the organization.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think, some of the other, efficiencies or optimization opportunities, I just that fresh perspective. I mean, I feel like, I hate to keep going back to AI, but there's just a lot to think about in the types of things that we're being faced with understanding. And, when we think about AI, we're not just thinking about it from how we leveraging it. We're thinking about like, how are we, talking about how we're using it with clients? What's our stance on the utilization of AI in our business model? And those are like two completely different objectives for the organization. You spoke a little bit about some of the challenges that our businesses are facing. So what are things that, we should be thinking about when we're thinking about hiring or vetting or onboarding a fractional person or a fractional team?
Right. Well, there are many, and the reasons that organizations consider fractional options vary. So, as you and I both know, a lot of times it's because they have experienced turnover or retirements or transition amongst more traditional team members, and they're having mixed results or no luck at all in the employment market. And so that causes them to scratch their head and think, is there another option? I mean, that's one of the reasons. Another reason is they're starting to get to a level in their revenues or in their employee count where they're realizing that their team members, and I spoke to this a little bit ago, are spread too thin and they need to bring in subject matter experts, but they're not sure if they have the budget or the workload to warrant a full-time professional. That's another reason. A third reason would be that they have a temporary challenge they're facing. Either they have a new product they're pursuing or a new market they're trying to expand in, or a new initiative that they're really focused on, and they just believe that it's too soon to determine that they're ready to staff it on a full-time basis. I'll give you a couple examples at HR Source, not only of how we've used fractional HR support or fractional support, not HR, and then how we've been called to help other organizations. So years ago, we struggled with hiring IT professionals who really had the breadth and capabilities to assist our organization in every way with our technology needs. We had a lot of growing pains. We were increasingly trying to figure out how to deliver our products and services and information, harnessing the best of technology. And we only had a budget to hire one or one and a half IT people, and they were either systems or database people or desktop people, but they didn't have a full range of expertise nor really interests. So we decided to outsource to an AT, which is our IT partner, and they have individuals who specialize in every area, and we use them on a fractional basis for our specific needs. Many of our member organizations are growing and have never had an HR professional on staff, but they're bumping up against, 50 employees. And now a lot of organizations are hiring their first HR people at a much lower employee count than 50. It used to be 50. was kind of a magic number because a lot of employment laws kicked in at 50. But they called to say, you know what, we just feel like we don't understand how to do recruitment in today's world. Like we don't understand Indeed and job boards. We don't know how to interact. We don't have an applicant tracking system. And then others say we have just so many employee relations challenges. We don't feel like we have internal systems or policies. We don't know how to support our managers and supervisors. Our training and development efforts are weak. And so we would love your assessment as to whether or not we're at a point where we need full-time HR, or whether or not, working with a fractional provider like HR Source is enough. And can you help us figure that out?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the same. I'll speak to, like I mentioned earlier, we had hired a CFO to do some special projects for us. I know even in my CEO forum, we're talking a lot about COOs. Like there's a really big gap in the marketplace right now for operational, like somebody that really can manage the ship while the leader is focused on the vision of the organization and the growth. But some of the things that Red Caffeine gets brought into is consulting work. We have recently done a project where one of our clients is making an acquisition, and they needed some guidance on how to integrate those new organizations. Should they be a branded house, or should they, all roll up onto the one organization? But as well in, another situation where they just don't have that skill set on their leadership team. And as I mentioned earlier, it's like, are you going to build it or are you going to buy it? So what is the most effective and efficient way to go to market? And I think that, what hit me in terms of like just kind of talking to others in the marketplace was, I spoke to a CEO and I'm like, so what made you, you've always hired this internally before, what really made you pull the trigger on a fractional CMO strategy versus, another CMO full-time employee? And he said, when they leave, we just lose everything. All that tribal knowledge walks out the door with that one person, and then we're starting from scratch again. And I think for us, when we think about, the offering that we provide, if somebody leaves, it kind of still stinks. You like have this whole team ecosystem that you're used to working with, but you're not losing everyone. You still have that team intact. You've got a methodology to lean into. So there might be a little bit of a bump, but it's not like a gaping hole is left when somebody departs the organization. So, when you think about that in the landscape of hiring, that is huge. We've all lost that, the guy that knows everything about your business, and, he's in this and that and that. And to be able to kind of protect against those types of big deficits in your business operations is just a really important factor, I believe, that you just don't have those major dips because one person holds all the keys to that type of information.
Right. And again, if you're working with a firm like yours or an association like mine, where we have deep bench strength, you're not relying upon the expertise and skills of one individual. With all due respect for individuals who are out there with their shingle up, doing consulting work, they have an important place in our market as well. But you are not going to experience the loss of expertise. I mean, if someone on my team decides to leave HR Source, we're going to still be there for our member. We're going to still fill those shoes. So we often are changing up key players on our projects, either depending on the needs of the member or the needs of the client at any given time, our own availability, supply and demand. I mean, this is a form of collaborative consumption where, a lot of organizations are benefiting from someone or our organization's expertise. So I couldn't agree with you more, Kathy, that pain and the upheaval caused by turnover of a given individual who has tons of experience or holds all the cards with regard to what's been happening, that is flattened out considerably through using a fractional model. So you have, I explained some of the benefits on the front end of having someone come in who already has a lot of experience and go right to work, but you also have a lot of benefits on the back end in terms of much less volatility when you're working with an organization that's providing you with fractional HR support or fractional marketing support, fractional IT, fill in the blank.
Right, all the operational functions. So we talked a little bit about challenges, because I don't want to make this all, rose-colored glasses viewpoint, because there are challenges. I mean, we both are very invested in the type of culture that we're trying to build in our organization. So I think, what are you doing, or what have you seen clients do that are entertaining a fractional relationship in terms of like, how are you going to work together and still share those value sets and cultural aspects?
Right. So I think it's a shared responsibility between the employer as well as the client that is choosing to hire someone from your team or hire your organization to fill a role, because there's a much higher likelihood of success if, when you use a fractional team member of any type, that the organization gives them access and makes them part of the organization. So I have a lot of empathy for our team members who are in fractional roles, because they not only have to learn our HR sources, team, and our internal systems and our culture, but they may be working at 3 or more other organizations where they have to get to know their culture, have to build relationships, have to learn their technology, learn their communication style, and be able to turn on a dime if they're serving a number of different organizations. So it's not everyone is skilled or capable or possesses a personality or behavior patterns or strengths that lend themselves well to being in a fractional role. I think there's kind of I'd say it's an urban myth that, hey, if you retire, anybody can do this in their retirement years. We've certainly learned it's a particular type of individual who is capable of being successful in a fractional role. Also, not every organization is particularly adept at working well with fractional team members. Right. So sometimes we've had experiences where, they weren't embraced in a way that helps them succeed. Right. They've been left out of critical communications. They've been, walled off. They've been not given the type of data or metrics or support that they need internally. Information is not shared. So really, it has to be a concerted effort on both the behalf of the person who's in these roles, as well as the organization that's hiring fractional team members, to make it a success. It doesn't happen automatically without considerable effort.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I think, there's a lot of tech enablement that can make the experience a lot more manageable. And then I think about, things that are coming on the horizon, and we decided that we weren't going to go deep in talking about legal and some of the, the laws around staffing in this way, but there are going to be more and more barriers and limitations put on us because of, there is some real benefit to employers, but not as much benefit to the government in our states in terms of taxation capabilities and such. So I assume, I'm not as into it as you are, but I assume there's some things coming down the pike. But is there anything that's top of mind that, we should be considering now that is a challenge?
Well, I think, for many years, employers have been a little confused. I'll be light and understanding because there is a lot to understand. But, the independent contractor laws and guidelines and case law have been, a little confusing for employers. And, that's kind of being stirred up again at various levels in the legislative process. And I'll put in a plug for our organizations. We make it simpler for our members and you for your clients, because you employ the fractional team members. There are other organizations that really use more of a brokerage approach.
Okay.
So they'll brokering, and all of the people who are working in these roles are truly independent contractors who have their own businesses. And so the organizations that contract with these individuals might need to take more care and concern with, are they determining the terms and conditions of employment? Are they requiring specific hours? Are they requiring individuals, like, if it looks like a fish and swims like a fish and smells like a fish,
Right.
It might be a fish, likely. And, the government might figure that out, and they might not be an independent contractor. And so employers occasionally run into some hot water because people that they are treating like employees, they're paying like independent contractors and not giving benefits and not paying appropriate payroll taxes. And I should probably stop there. My attorneys might be after me and be like, Mary Lynn, that's enough now.
For more information, HR Source does have attorneys on staff if you've got more questions. But, so let's think about this, as a framework question. I feel like, I've been really thinking about this, both from our client perspective as well as from my hiring perspective in terms of the selection and onboarding process. And, we actually push our clients to hold us accountable to a certain metrics and scorecards, and because we don't want to be surprised that we've not met expectations. We want to be clear about what those expectations are. But so what are some of the things that you have seen in the selection and onboarding process that help you really ensure that everyone's on the same page in terms of, this is what I'm hiring you to do, and this is the outcomes I'm expecting from this relationship?
I think that goes all the way back to those initial conversations where you're determining if the member, the employer, the organization you're listening to, and then scoping a project, that you're the right fit and that you have expertise and bodies, people on your team that can help solve some of their problems, can help meet some of their challenges, can help do some of the jobs and tasks that they are not able to handle on their own. Then next would be, a formal agreement, usually putting that in writing where you're defining the scope. And once that agreement is accepted, I would move on to the stage that you just outlined, which is deliverables, right? What are the expectations around timelines, revenues produced, expenses reduced, hires made, marketing pieces produced,
right.
Training
Sales.
programs, right? Whatever it is you're delivering, is it happening in an acceptable manner on an acceptable timeline? And are you having regular check-ins to determine, is this a fit? Is this working? Are we meeting expectations? If not, Can we course correct? Do we have the wrong person on this
Right.
assignment? Do we need a team here? Have we not allocated enough time? Or is it just a complete mismatch?
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're not interacting regularly, I think it's also critical to have strong mentors, role models, leadership that is monitoring these. Like someone on the organization side needs to be that responsible touch point for helping to nurture the relationship, measure the success, and communicate on a regular basis. Because we've had issues before where they kind of sat our person in a room by themselves, made it very difficult for them to get quick answers to questions that were really insider knowledge in the organization. And it really made it difficult for our team member to be successful because they didn't have anyone within the organization to rely upon to help fill in the blanks and to really spearhead the relationship building and introduce them to the right people and to show that this is a relationship we really want to nurture and have be successful and matter. Sitting alone in a room or sitting alone at home and not having someone who's responsive to you, who will help you, support you, answer questions, makes it almost impossible to have these relationships.
No, I
results.
The way we've thought about it, especially when we're, bringing on a partner or bringing on, a fractional service provider for our organization, we started to, I think we're getting more mature at it now, and we're still like trying to level it up, but we think about it really like almost like an actual employment hire, like we are, setting the job description or setting the needs assessment based on a specific scope that we're looking for. We're, really onboarding the person, especially if they're going to be a part of our delivery team, to how we work together. We're setting up our communication expectations. We're setting up Slack or whatever we're using to, have ongoing timely response, and how to use email. Or so we're kind of setting up the expectations, and then we're also trying to think about like who on the team is their go-to, like in depending on the role or depending on the type of relationship, that person is their manager, so to speak, whether like that group or that person is reporting up or has that person to go to if they've got questions. And that's the person that is responsible for getting the outcomes that they're hoping for from that partner. So I feel like, I don't know if we've done it exactly right, but that's how we've really approached it. And then we're, currently I think we're starting to work on these, evaluations, like what is doing a good job mean, and how do we make sure that our partner understands what doing a good job looks like, just like we would expect a full-time person to understand what success looks like, I guess. So do you feel like, is that typical, or do you feel like that's the best framework to
I think it's a really, really important framework. We also keep learning and growing and improving upon ours. I think we've learned that the onboarding process can't be shortchanged.
Yeah.
It has to be comprehensive. It has to be well thought out. It has to be considered a really important and vital part of the process. And then these check-ins are also just critical, and recalibration, because almost always there is some scope creep and some or just natural changing of business prerogatives, right? That is just a normal part of every business, right? Things change, and to have those conversations often enough. We've also incorporated into our internal performance review process feedback from our members who have engaged our team on projects. so that we're not just providing feedback from our vantage point, but we're providing actionable feedback from our member organizations where we're doing recruiting or are in fractional roles to help our team members do a better job and to give our members a voice in helping us improve the performance of the people that are on our team out there delivering services. And that input has been so valuable and so important in helping us, again, improve our onboarding, improve our check-ins, improve the questions we're asking to help evaluate and ensure we continue to up our game. It's an iterative process. I mean, I will be the first to admit, we've been growing really since the last recession. We took a concerted effort to really expand this area of our business and our organization's services. And our team has continued to grow and evolve, but so has the way we go to market, and the way we handle these engagements has just continued to improve. And I think we'll continue to change. We mentioned AI a little earlier, and you mentioned SEO, right? I mean, there is bound to be considerable positive change and evolution in the way these services are delivered and how they're measured in the years to come.
Yeah. And I guess, for me of late, our offering, we expect our team to know our clients' businesses, like I always say, better than their own internal people know them, because of the way and the access to a more holistic, truly what's going on in the business, that maybe all employees wouldn't be privy to that information. But I'm starting to expect that from our partners. I don't want you just doing, bookkeeping. I kind of want you to know what's going on with my business, so that you're not just doing, good job doing your job. You can actually come back and provide some insights, or, what I should know or be thinking about as a business runner in today's landscape, because I don't know everything that's going on from an accounting or taxation standpoint. So I want my partners bringing those things to me, so that I'm not always feeling like I was left in the dark and I found out from another source. So I do feel like, it is important for fractional service providers to level up the experience, that they're providing, and not just be good at what they do in their core competency, but be good at being, able to bring information to the right people in organizations, so that everyone's being kept up to speed with options and opportunities for their business.
And I think that's increasingly an expectation, Kathy, and a reasonable expectation. It's also the only real way that a fractional option can mirror some of the upside of a regular team member, but also be a really intriguing alternative to just a consultant who comes in and does a short-term project. So it really gives you the best of both worlds, right? You aren't making the long-term commitment necessarily that requires benefits or a full-time salary, but you're also not just hiring someone who isn't involved in the rest of your business. They're using the knowledge and their expertise and combining it to take your organization up a level. So that I'm really proud of, the fact that that's become a much more integral part of the services both of our organizations offer. And those partnerships that are the most long lasting and net the highest results are definitely because this has been part of the relationship, that the individuals that are on these projects become so much a part of the fabric. And
it's how they get paid is the way I viewed it. It's like, who cares? We're a team. We have vested goals with the organizations we're partners with. I'm investing a lot of time when we're onboarding a partner, whether it's my time or one of my team's time when we're onboarding somebody. So I want to feel like you're part of my success, or it's just not the, then it's a more transactional relationship. And I think that to me is a shift in the mindset of what we all should be doing in terms of providing these types of services, and that what we should expect as people that are consuming these services. So
yes, I couldn't agree more. And that's a positive change that's occurred. I think those who are hiring and using fractional services have set the bar higher, and organizations have responded in an impressive way. And I think if they don't, their options and opportunities in the marketplace are going to be more limited, and or they just might be performing a different sort of service that's very short lived or episodic, as opposed to building a long-term partnership with lasting results and a really strong, close relationship. There are two different models. Both have a place in today's market. But for those of us who are providing fractional HR services that we hope, or fractional services of all types, that will stand the test of time and deliver impressive results, I think it's incumbent upon us to continue to know the businesses we're working in and treat the engagements as if we were full-time employees.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, as we're thinking about like the future, what are some of the things that people should have on their radar in terms of, staffing options overall? I mean, I think I became so interested in this for so many reasons, because it was impacting my business. It was impacting me as an employer. I was having trouble hiring people. So how am I going to mitigate that barrier for growth? Like, what should be on the top of people's minds?
Yeah. So while pain often causes us to do things,
right?
Right. We finally end up at the doctor when we're in pain, or the pain becomes too. So I am not naive enough to think that pain isn't going to continue to be a driver for many organizations to consider fractional options for the first time. But I would love to believe we're in an era now where people proactively consider this as a viable option before they're in pain. So they think of it as a way to, I love you use the word level up. They think of it as an opportunity to improve their organization, or take a heavy load or burden off some of their team members, or to expand their organization's depth or breadth or expertise in a more measured way. And they consider it before the wheels are falling off or things get really ugly. So they look at it as a viable option whenever they are experiencing growth, new opportunities, a challenge keeping up with what's going on in the marketplace, whether that be technology or new ways of marketing, fill in the blank, whatever the new accounting codes are, a way to keep pace with what's happening. And they're not yet ready to make a hire, or as they experience turnover, and they analyze their turnover and they think, I don't want this to keep happening to us. Let's slow down and try another approach. So I hope it's becoming much more common and acceptable as a really great option, not the only option, one of many options. And organizations do it before they feel like they don't have any other option. Because certainly we still get a lot of calls from members who should have called us months ago or years ago. Things have really gotten difficult for them, and they're desperate by the time they pick up the phone and reach out. And I know you've worked with organizations like that too. We're happy to take those calls and help organizations, but it would be wonderful if we started hearing from more organizations and employers that are in a better place and are just considering this as another way to improve their organization.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I honestly we always are talking about like staffing as we're thinking about a new year, or like where we're at in terms of a current quarter and that kind of stuff. But I hadn't really thought about it like, this should be part of our strategic consideration set. I don't know that we've leveled it up to that standpoint. Now, we did just get a couple questions. The companies that don't often call out which team members are full-time versus fractional, have you seen any reason to believe whether it matters to end customers or clients when people don't have that sort of transparency?
I really like that question.
I do too.
I don't think anyone's ever asked me before. So this is totally ad lib, off the cuff. I think it increasingly does not matter. I think the lines have become blurred, and that's a good thing. I think it matters less today whether or not someone is full-time or part-time, whether or not they took some years off to raise their kids or travel
Right.
the world. I think it doesn't matter necessarily if they're sitting in your office working beside you, or they're on a beautiful island in the Caribbean doing their work. I think it is increasingly less important. The thing that matters is that there's high performance, that expectations are met, that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're responsible, and that they care about the work they're doing, and it's high quality deliverables. It doesn't matter to me, full-time, part-time, fractional. I mean, in some ways, the term fractional still rubs many the wrong way, because I don't think it has a negative connotation. We used to call it interim here. But for many of our partnerships, it's really not interim.
10 years feels a little
Yeah,
bummed
it's
to
like,
say interim.
is that really interim anymore? So I would say that the lines are blurry, and I'm a fan.
Yeah, we struggled with this because we definitely do agree. Like we are super overt about any of our team members that aren't technically full-time employed. It's even communicated on our website. But I also want the companies that we're working with to feel like they have a fluid relationship with our team that doesn't feel like, oh, well, that team's doing, like that, and they're separate. So, the way we orchestrate anybody that is not a full-time employee is just the experience for clients should feel frictionless, in my view. And it really, if they want to do the research and dive deeper and understand, what is their employment agreement, we're always open to talking about those conversations. But I agree. If we're doing a good job, who cares? I don't care if you're working for me and you're doing a good job and you want to be a contract employee or a partner employee. That is awesome, because that works with your lifestyle. I'd rather have good people than a full-time employee or all, fractional or contract employees. So I think I would 100% agree with that response.
And that's changed, Kathy. You and I have been we've been around a little bit, and that has definitely changed. I mean, in the past decade, changed so much, but over the past 3 decades, really, really just a complete change. And, I would say most of our members, our employers that work with us, it's very difficult to tell who's part-time and who's full-time,
right,
where people are working from. If our team members choose to be open about how many hours they work a week or where they're working from, that's completely their prerogative. But I don't think it's obvious, nor it should be obvious to the end user of our services. If the work is being done and the work is high quality and it's meeting expectations, that's what matters.
Well, I think we'd be, this is the service we provide. So we'd be a little bit disingenuous if we didn't have fractional experiences that we're leaning into too. I feel like we get so much from some of our outside partners in terms of innovative thinking or how they're doing it in a different organization. And to me, that's so additive, or industry experience that we might not have innate to our organization. So I agree. I think this is a modern approach and a way to think about growing your business without some of the limitations that we've been facing, just in terms of this employment climate overall in the last few years. Salary, escalation, no, resources available to do these types of jobs, being more open to hiring a mom that can only work, from 10 to 2 when our kids are in school. Like, I think all of these are so opportunistic versus limiting, and that's what we all should be thinking about for our business. So, well, I know we're getting to the end of time, so I want to thank you again for being a part of this conversation. It's always goes so quickly, as we say, and we could really, talk for a long time, but I want to make sure everybody knows how to reach out to you. If they've got any questions, please put business as unusual in the subject line, so Mary Lynn knows that you're coming from hearing this live stream. And then I also want to be sure to give a shout out to our sponsors, HR Source. They do a lot beyond just having fractional service offerings. It's an association that we are a part of and we get a lot of benefit from. So please, take a look at their website. And then M3 Learning, they create sales superstars. And it's a perfect segue into our next event, who is going to be M3 is going to, our guest is going to be Tom Latteray, and he is going to be talking about designing a way to transform your sales methodology. So Tom is a managing partner at M3 Learning, and he brings a couple decades of experience in lining sales strategies with the nuanced needs of customers today. The session is going to focus on dissecting the importance of really validating your customers' concerns or your prospects' concerns, establishing yourself as an irreplaceable ally, and engaging prospects with a customized approach. So some of the things that you'll learn is how to make clients feel more validated rather than overloaded with information. So I'm going to take a note, because I feel like we did that very recently and we want to find a way to improve there. Transition from being an order taker to becoming an indispensable strategic ally, and then discover how to customize the information you share with potential clients to make sure that they're staying engaged. I think, people want to not be sold. They really do want to buy, but you have to make sure you're really meeting their needs throughout that journey. So again, thank you for joining us for Business as Unusual live stream. I'm Kathy Steele, and it was just such a pleasure, as always, talking with you, Mary Lynn. We're both hoping that the ideas and insights that we shared today will help you think differently about your talent strategy. And one key to being successful in business is being nimble, like we talked about, and really just being open to new approaches. So we really encourage you to consider the gaps in your current people strategy and explore those new staffing methods to fill those gaps. If you have any questions or are looking for additional information or resources, please feel free to reach out to me directly or any one of the team members at Red Caffeine. And let's continue to challenge the usual and pursue innovative business solutions. Until next time, keep building badass businesses that people want to work with and for. Thank you.